Have you got enough lube on your shaft?
I always have enough lube on my shaft.
Real man doesn't need lube.
Alright, so we don't have one of those fancy cutting wheels here. We just have a shorno and a file.
It's already in.
Oh, that's what she said. Alright, Sean, what's happening today?
We're back from Rocky and we're back to this POS. Gonna start reassembling the Eco L67 build, I suppose. It's gonna Eco bottom end with an L67 top end.
Frankenstein with a fresh bottom end.
Yeah, fully rebuilt motor.
So, if you haven't seen before, the other week, turn it up. Is there still a bowl here?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. So, it's all prepped, ready for assembly. Did a good job, didn't it?
Yeah, it looks alright. Looks better than what it was when we pulled it apart. It's all nice and clean, not covered in crud anymore.
So, yeah. So, pre-honed. Ow! You dropped a bolt on my foot. Pre-decked. Like, best I can do.
Yeah, you gave the good end. You gave the block a good hand job. That's what you did.
All right. Well, we'll start putting stuff back together, and we'll start off with the crank.
3800 Series 2.
Woo! What I done previously off camera, I've gone through and taken the original crank and through the lathe, gave it a clean up and a bit of sand with some WD-40. Unfortunately, she's sat for a little bit off. I did give it some WD-40, but it looks like the amount of humidity we've had in Brisbane should have lubed it up a bit more. Yep, we'll put that back together to that, and yeah. Nice. Got to get the frosted bearing out. So the only bearing in your block that actually has these little sides on it, just to stop the cam. Sorry, not the cam. The crank moving back and forward from your foot on a clutch, or I don't know if do you get any pressure from the automatic gearbox? Anyway, they look alright. Anyway, they're out. So we'll start clean that last little bit up and start lubing. Alright, so we're putting bearings in now. So there is a top and a bottom side that you need to look at. Obviously the bottom side that's closer to the block has the holes, and they've got these little notches which tells you left and right. So what we're doing at the moment, we're just doing a test fit with no assembly lube, and the idea is, where is it, Shauno? There it is. So we got these. I don't have a bore scope, so closest thing I got is these things called clearance. It's like Play-Doh. So you crush it down with the correct torque, and you can actually measure the actual clearance based on how much it actually stretches when it crushes. So I've got 3 types. We should only be using green tonight to get around about a 25 foul clearance. That's the aim. If the green's not enough, you go on to blue. So we'll see what happens. Much difference between the old and the new one?
They're a lot cleaner. That's the backside of an old one. That's the backside of a new one. So I don't know what that marking is from.
That's just oil moving in between.
But no, they don't look like it didn't spin any bearings by the look of it.
Quite clean.
Yeah. New bearings in. Let's dry fit the crank.
Alright, so about a dry fit now, and we'll put the main caps on and we'll see how much clearance there actually is. Alright, so we're putting the old main caps back in. Now, you'll see on the sides a number. So, number 3. So this is the third one back from the front. So we know that's going to be going there. So I need to find number 1, which is this bad boy. So we're going to be putting number 1 back in. So, but before I do that, I'm going to grab a pair of scissors or wire cutters, and we'll grind our green tape. And we just cut it to the size that we're after. So about there. So it's like this little green plasticine of thread. So we're going to shove that on top of, get a look at this one, Sean. So chuck it on top there, as you can see. And then we'll push it down, torque it to spec, and see how much clearance we have on it. You always know with number 1, there's an arrow pointing to the front, so you know that this side has to be on this side. So let me get that in there. Don't need those in there for the moment. And then we'll grab a maraca.
Got your torque wrench ready?
Yeah, I'll get it in a second.
Give it all the torques.
I'll get this closer to getting in. Alright, I'll get them all in with a bit of Play-Doh on each, and then I'll come back to it in a second. Alright, main cap sequence is 15 for the first pass, just like your head. Go from the inside to the outside, and then starting again, a 70-degree turn. The outside ones. Cool. Alright, so that's our first torque test. Now we'll undo them again to see how much clearance we actually have in the bearings. I'm hoping this time it's a lot easier to get these main caps out than before. Oh, so much easier. Alright, so what we have is a squish point. So come over here, Sean. Fuck, you're lazy, get off your chair.
I don't need to move when I have extendo stick.
You're not even pointing at the crank.
I'm pointing at the crank right now. I can see the crank right now.
You can't even see the goop. Here, I'll do it myself. Cameraman doesn't want to get off his chair.
It's Sunday night. Leave me alone.
Alright, so you can see there, that's the output. So we're looking at 0.50 as an inch, so 50 thou of an inch worth of clearance. I'll consult the book, but I'm pretty sure we were supposed to be looking around about 25 thou clearance. But I'll come back to you in a second.
How do we go with clearances?
We are within tolerance, which is fantastic. So majority of bearings are between 40 thou of an inch and 50 thou of an inch, which is within tolerance because the tolerance is up to 53 thou of an inch, so which is fantastic. So we'll now lube up our big boys and oh yeah, look at all that lube. Alright, so now we're just taking off the old Play-Doh because we don't need that on shaft anymore.
He said shaft.
Oh god. I already did that one. That one's lubed up, ready to roll.
Have you got enough lube on your shaft?
I always have enough lube on my shaft.
A real man doesn't need lube.
So we'll lube up our shaft. You guys can lube up your shaft at home if you're watching this. And we'll go put this crank in and slam it in. Crank's all in. So if you didn't see it before, 15 Newton meters and 70 degrees, or roughly around about 80 foot. 70 book says 70 foot-pounds. If you're using ARP studs, around 80 foot-pounds. So we were in the middle of 75 foot-pounds. So that's all in there. She feels nice and good, nice and lubed up. So what we do for the pistons in?
Yep.
Yep.
Don't forget to mark your bolts when you've torqued them so you know they're all good.
All right, and just don't forget your side bolts on the side of the main cap, so which is 15 to 18 Newton meters, then 45 degrees. And don't lose your sock in the process. All right, we're on to ring territory. So it's good to lay your shit out. So 1, 3, 5, 2, 4, 6. Top one, second one, third one. So I'll do it that way because I've got top one on the bottom. So what we're going to go through is put these actually in the cylinder bore. Put a feeler gauge in there. Make sure they've got the right clearance. We're all good. Then we'll put them on the pistons, shove the piston in the hole, and then put the rod bearing in. All right, so compression ring wise, we're looking around 0.3 to 0.5 of a gap. The more horsepower you flow and the more air you put in the motor, the little bit more of a gap you want because it allows the ring to not bind up under extreme heat. So it's standard car. We're just going with the standard manual, which is where it is 0.3 to 0.5 of a millimeter. All right, so suck that in the hole, push it down with piston so it's all equal, and now we're going to see the gap. So you can see the gap here, very close.
It's only tiny.
So 0.3 to 0.5. So here's 0.3.
Beautiful.
So it's definitely there. So we'll go make sure 0.5 is not too fat. So here's 0.5. This binding there. So I'm going to say this is currently 0.4 maybe? Let's go with 0.4. Let's see if this one's nice and yeah, around 0.4. So it's within tolerance, so which is great, straight out of the bag. So I go through, I put all the top rings in first, make sure they're all 0.4, and then I'll do the next one, which is, so the second ring gap is between 0.2 and 0.7 apparently, so that's even more tolerance. So yeah, Holden obviously has a reason for that. I have no idea. So I'll go through, do all that, and then if I have to remove any material, I just put it up against a cutting disc and I'll just slowly just cut it away. But yeah, teaching Sean at the same time. He's never rebuilt an engine.
No.
How are you liking this at the moment? Give it to someone else to do for you?
I don't mind it. It's just reading a book and following the instructions, isn't it? It's just building a jigsaw puzzle. That's 0.45.
0.45?
I'd say we're at 0.45.
Okay.
0.45.
Alright.
What did you say? 5? 0.5.
Yeah. So because we've honed material out of the cylinder bores, and it's quite an old block, obviously the ring has opened up over time to make it fit, so we can't remove any material. So, yeah.
0.5. Alright, let's go for another one.
So going through, we got nothing bigger than 0.5, which means we're all within clearance, within tolerance.
Cool.
So this is on the far end, because if we had any more material removed from the cylinder bores, it would be more than 0.5, therefore we would have to go an oversized ring, so 10th hour over. But at the moment, which is good, I don't have to go get new rings. Now, you might be asking, what is the difference between an L67 piston and an Ecotech piston? Alright. So an L67 piston does have a taller ring land. So this is an Ecotech piston. So they actually have a shorter actual piston top, and they have a longer, skinnier rod. They also only have a 2mm top piston ring. So an L67 actually has a 3mm top piston ring, so a little bit more thicker for maybe holding in more compression, more boost. But having a taller piston itself has the material to have that. The second ring on an Ecotech is 3mm, so you can always tell when you got a I'll restart that again. You can always tell when you got an L67 or an Ecotech ring set, because you don't get 2mm rings in a bag, so which is good. But it'll do what we want, which is stock boost. I had this on an M90 pushing about 17,000 RPM, so it can hold up. So, but we're only just doing it for factory power, so it's going to do whatever we want.
So these ones are a bit toit like a toiger. We're only measuring like 0.5 to 0.6, and they need to be in minimum of 0.75.
Yeah.
So
your second ring on this motor is 0.75 to 1mm on the second ring, and we're currently sitting around 0.5. So they're a little bit toit.
So we're just going to get a stone and try and rub a little bit off there, put it back in, and it's just fits where it touches, really.
Because what's going to happen is, if it gets too tight, they push against each other in the heat, and then that will then take the force from the actual two things touching and start forcing up over top of each other. Then that can end up trying to crack these little ringlands here. We don't want that, so...
No crack. Crack is bad.
And as for drugs, well, drugs are bad. You shouldn't do drugs. Okay, that about wraps up my introduction.
We don't have one of those fancy cutting wheels here. We just have a Shawno and a file.
Yeah.
Remove the burrs, chuck it back in and retest.
Have another crack.
Yeah. Alright, so all done now, all measured. Top ring was pretty much spot on. Second ring needed a bit of love from the file, but they all measure up perfectly with clearances, so it's going to come from on now. So I've cleaned up these pistons from when they were in the engine before. Got all the carbon off them, so they look quite nice now. Here's one I did not clean up and left for it. So you can see all the amount of schmutz in there, and how much like it's stuck. Like I can't spin the ring at all. Like I'm pushing on that, like the amount of crud that's in there. That's probably why I didn't have any compression anyway. So yeah, so you can see all that's all falling out of the actual rings, out of the ring gap. So I'll clean that one up last time. So go around, fit pistons 1 to 5, clean up piston 6, and then shove piston 6 in 6. Lube.
Yeah, lube it up and then stick it in the
See,
hole.
there's enough lube in there for you people. A lot of lube. So much lube. It's already in. Oh.
That's what she said. Like a glove.
Alright, so all con rods are in. Should have a little bit of play, which is what should happen. Now we're just going to crank them up. So 27 newton meters, then 45 degrees. And don't lose your socket.
Need to crank that motor. Oop.
Done.
Ooh.
So our engine is now rotational.
Beautiful.
No binding whatsoever, which is what we want.
We only have 3%. Say bye, people.
I'll see you in the morning for the next part.
Ooh, are you sick of crappy trailer full of rust, unable to move them out of the ground? These may cause some injuries. Don't worry, go see Jody at 3D Trailer Hire. Quality trailers built to handle even the toughest conditions. Always serviced and maintained. Don't bother with those old rusted buckets. Wait, there's more. Accessories, straps, and brake controllers. Don't delay. Book away. Search JD Trailer Hire on Google now.
Good morning, Vietnam. It's the next day, and I've just finished putting the rear main on with the new rear main seal. It was a bit of a pain. The old stuff was really stuck on there and hard and crusty. It took me ages to try to get it off and everything, but in the end, got some new stuff on. Got the old main out and gave it a clean, and she's all in there. So now that's all done, I can put it back on the stand and we'll move on to the front part. Alright, now it's time to give your stick a bit of lube and shove it in a hole. Oh yeah, just give it a nice good rub. Okay, thrust plate's back on. So T30 screws, 20 newton meters to put back on. Alright, we'll just quickly dial everything back up and put the chain back on. Alright, all lined back up. Being stock, it's easy, it's dot to dot, can't mistake it. And seeing that old tensioner was chewed the F out, the new fresh to put in there. Interestingly, the new material is like a hard plastic now compared to this old. Is this plastic? I don't know. Someone in the comments tell me if this is, the original ones are also plastic except it's just gone a bad colour. Yeah, that's what they look like now. Alright, it's lifter time. All cleaned up and ready to roll in. Make sure your roller is straight with the cam. Doesn't matter anyway because the actual tray itself will keep it in its location. Alright, with the trays back in, throw the timing cover and new gasket on the front now, and then we can start putting the heads back on. So we're just going to tighten up the camshaft bolt. So this is a big one. So it's 90 to 110 newton meters plus 90 degrees. So what I've done is a couple of 5/16 bolts in the crank. There, wedged it like that. Now that should allow me to tighten this. So sketchy. Yep. Now plus 90 degrees. So take that off. Put it on this guy. And roll away. Done. In. Alrighty. So I always like to put a little smear of goo around the main areas before I throw it on, because the paper gasket itself, I just don't trust it on first startup. So just a little bit of goo to hold the gasket in place and to seal up on first startup. There we go. Done. Perfect. Alrighty. Now just remember your bottom two bolts down here are actually supporting the crank angle sensor. So that's got to go on first. I find the hole. That's what I'm chasing. And I've lost myself my other bolt. Grab the spare off the spare motor. It's good having a spare motor around. I can see where shit goes before I pull it off. Not 13, half inch. Why can't this motor be all metric? They're the bolts I'm able to do up. Now, I'll throw the cam home position sensor in, and then we'll put the water pump on, and that will give me my final bolts for this timing cover. Okay, so water pump's all in, timing cover's all on, sweet. Now because this is an Ecotech block, this little stud right here is where the actual water passage elbow will bolt to. So they block this off on the Ecotech block, but we require it. So I'm going to take the pin out, this with a T50 star, and then we'll bolt him back in later on. Alright, most of the bottom end is all back together, ready to roll. So it's got to put the heads on. I've been able to put the pilot studs back in, pilot thingies, you know what I mean, that word. Got a bit done today. I'll come back and do heads tomorrow. Alright, we've had two little blobs there. We'll go check the head on. Right, starting from the inside. Cross pattern. Alright, torque settings for cylinder heads on the V6. 2 steps, 34 Newton meters for first step. Where are we? Step 1. And then setting it to 90. And tighten an extra 90 degrees, do not exceed 90 Newton meters. So I then get to 90. I got to 90. I got to 90. It's 90. Cool. Alright, cylinder has torqued. Long as we don't put any heat into them, I can undo them and reuse the bolts again. ARP bolts, you can just keep using them over and over again. Alright, and then grab 2 semi-clean bits of rocket valve train gear, because I have not cleaned these yet. Sit them in position. Set you in position. Alright, so what we need to make sure, turn this around a little bit. What we need to make sure it's currently at 0 lash. And you can see that's currently not at 0 lash. So 0 lash would be when both valves are resting. So that's 0 lash there. And then we just torque them up. And torque rating for these rocker bolts, 2 steps, 19 Newton meters. And then 90 degrees. Cool, now let's do a rotation. Seems good to me. Now let's pull everything back off again. Alright. Come on, get off. Alright, so as you can see, we didn't even touch the blue tack, so we know that it's not, the valves aren't coming down that far to do anything bad or damage it. So I'm happy to continue with this. It's a good step to take when you're doing aftermarket camshafts, etc., because of the aggressive ramp rate and the increase possibly in the base circle. I'm not 100% sure if they change the base circle, but anyway. But it's always a good step to follow, just making sure your piston and valve clearance is alright. So, number one's okay. I won't have to worry about the rest of them. So I'm going to take this off, go spray it with some copper spray, and I'm also going to put some thread sealants on the lower head bolt holes, because these are all going into water jackets, and we want to keep the water where water should be. Golden. You can probably get away with not doing it. This copper spray is normally used for multi-layered head gaskets, but I like doing it because I'm used to doing it. And I have literally just noticed from factory, the water jackets aren't cut out. Yeah. No, they're not. Just the smallest little water hole. Okay, that's new. Is there a reason? I don't know. But I thought all the water will come from the bottom of the block up into the cylinder head, then through your limb and out. So that's restricting water flow. See? Water passages. That's where they go to. Make sure you put a better thread sealant on there, doing water jackets on all bottom four. It's the next morning. So last night you would have seen me doing the heads for the first two stages, 34 newton meters and 90 degrees, not exceeding 90 newton meters. That's fine. We actually haven't yielded these bolts yet. I was able to do the testing of the clearance by going to stage 2. Stage 3, you have to do another 90. This is the part of when these torque to yield bolts actually give their advantage of their tension on pushing the head onto the motor. So if you're not familiar with torque to yield bolts, majority of bolts when they're tightened and again they're torque to yield, that's the forces of overcoming the actual thread inside the hole. The extra degree of tension is when the bolt is now being stretched and it's now posing the force of the cylinder back onto the engine block. So this is where torque to yield bolts cannot be reused, because once they're stretched, they're stretched. So stage 2 hasn't stretched them yet. We've just basically started overcoming the surface, the force of the threads. So now I'm going to do 90 degrees more, and at this point the bolts will be torque to yield and they cannot be reused. So we start from the center. And I really need to get a brake on this engine. Alright, torque to yield and invest in a brake. So now it's time for adding the rockers and valve train back on. Alright, so what we need to do when you're installing rockers is you need to make sure it's on the base circle of the camshaft. So we actually tightening them and torquing to 0 lash. So at the moment you can see like this is down, these are up. So you would say this is on the base circle at the moment. So you would torque them whilst there's no compression on the actual valves. If I go get myself this and turn the engine over, you'll see each one's going down. So we want to make sure that one's done, that one's done. So it's just finished the exhaust stroke. So now this is on the base circle, so we can now tighten these, which is 19 Newton meters plus 90 degrees. And there we go, guys. One assembled valve train on a 3.8 litre. Okay, so at this point I wanted to see what the compression's like on the engine, so I've thrown some spark plugs in. So that should all seal everything up, and I should be able to feel what the compression feels like against this thing. And you can hear the air trying to get past those rings. So she's got compression now. Lower intake manifold time. I see a lot of people get this wrong when installing. So you do have to use goo. Alright? There are 4 points. There, and there. These 4 corners need to have goo because unfortunately it just cannot seal in those corners. So you apply the goo before this goes on and these go on. What you can do as well, I would also recommend it, just seal a little bit of goo around the metal surfaces of the intake, because you just don't want any possibility of water getting out or oil getting in your intake runners, because unfortunately these are plastic, and the VRS kit I had came with all these plastic ones. You can get metal ones. Mates Engineering do sell metal ones. I would highly recommend it if you're pushing boost, but for a stock car they're fine. So the plastic degrades over time, it gets crushed, and therefore it doesn't seal. So I would always recommend that little bit of extra goo. So let me go and do that now, and we'll come back for the torque bolting sequence. Now it comes time to torque down the lower intake manifold. So you want to make sure it's all seated fine. Bolts are straight. Now you got to do your 4 corners first down the bottom. This one, and the same at the back. Tighten this thing up. That one and that one. So you got to do your bottom 4 corners first. What that does is it pulls the lower intake manifold down into the corners, making it actually go into the V better. So you start there, opposite corner from each other. So that one, that one, and then alright. So that's now pulled it down into the bottom corner. Should be nice and solid. So now they should be all lined up, which they all are. And then like a cylinder head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, Alright, cool. And now we'll just torque them up to the final number. Cool. Alright, same process again. This time with torque wrench. So we're going for 20 Newton meters now. 1, 2, 3, 4 bottom corners, and then from the inside, 1, 2, 3, 4 insides, and then the top outsides. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's how you bolt on a lower intake manifold. Alright, time to put heater accessories on, so we're just gonna bit of rubber grease, put it in the hole. Alright, so now put our new rocker carbo gasket in. What? Brand new little rocker cover bolt seals. Alright, last thing to pop on for today is our thermostat, our pipe, and manifolds. And then that's all we got time for. This is a 82-degree thermostat out of Magnaro. But now I don't run a thermostat anymore, so sweet. All these. That's right. These things are 10 mil. Rip. 10 mil here. 3 mil there. 3/8 there. Blah blah blah. Check it out. Manifolds on, etc. All bolted back together. So at this point, this is all we got time for. There's no point putting any more on there because it's still got to go into the car, which you'll see on next episode. But pretty much ready to bolt in. Just got to throw charger on top. I got to clean the injector still, and then once we put it in, we'll bolt the rest of the accessories on, and everything else. So tune in next episode, and we'll see it being swapped out with the Monaro engine that's currently in the VT, so the VT can get sold off. All right, thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you next time.